right. Order in the court. Order in the court. Okay. All right. All right. Welcome everybody today to Queer Court. It's officially in session. All right. You're joined today by me, Justice Benny, Justice West, Justice Soul Bunny. Would you like to introduce yourselves to the court?
Okay. Well, hello. I'm Justice Soul Bunny. I represent a lot of BIPOC trans and perspective profession that I'm known from video essay space. So yeah, that's me. This is Soul Bunny.
Hi, I'm Justice West. I represent the Black Gay District of America. You can find me on Twitter, probably cussing someone out. I'm friends with a lot of streamers on here and they want me to show my face, so that's why I'm here right now. So, hi.
Hi, welcome. Pleased to have both of you here in court today. All right, today on trial is Chappel Roan. She's facing 3 separate charges. She's facing a charge of being mean to her fans, facing charges of being a fake lesbian and exploiting drag culture, and facing charges of not endorsing Kamala Harris. Some of these are more serious charges than others. We're gonna get to the bottom of that before we get into the charges, though. Any other business to attend to in the court?
I don't know what y'all do this weekend. Did everyone have a fun weekend?
I had such a boring week. I literally always just want to Stardew, having a cozy little, I don't know, I've just spent so much time with my girlfriend, but whenever she's not free, it's just I'm just gonna Stardew it up and just relax in my apartment, you know?
Yeah. I went to a wedding. Go ahead, so mine's boring.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Usually when people ask questions, usually the person that asks will go last. But okay.
I'm learning all kinds of things. I'm learning new etiquettes. I'm learning Soul Bunny. She's very I'm learning she's very proper. She's no, there's a decorum to these things. You indolent. You know. So I'm okay. I'm learning a lot.
Wow. I went to a queer rave last night. Had fun with kids. But yeah, now I'm here.
Okay, it's my turn. I just went to a wedding last week. That's all I did. I dressed up nice.
Was it a straight wedding?
A straight wedding, and it ended up being very formal. And maybe we can talk about this when we have our trial on Zoomers. But it was oddly very traditional. I thought they were going to write and read their own vows. They didn't. They left it all to a priest, and I was just kind of left oh, what? Y'all didn't write your own and kind of tell them to each other? No, they just kind of left it low key, very conservative. Let the priest make them verbalize the vows themselves, and then they went. We just went on to the shenanigans, the reception afterwards, and had fun. But yeah, it was nice. I got to walk in a wedding.
That's wild. I feel like everybody does their own vows these days,
right? That's why I was
just their own. It's
it's very individualized, very personal. So I thought they would do their own silly vows and but and then you have an emotional. It's heartfelt. They didn't do that. They did do speeches at the reception, the best man and the bridesmaids. They did their own little thing, but it was still no, they just kind of let the priest do the whole thing, and it's okay. I guess that part was for the more conservative people in our family to have this part is for the family to recognize that we're getting married, and then afterwards it was silly Gucci, silly, and we got hoochie, and we got flamboyant. As
open bar
was close as it wasn't. I'm not gonna shit on this venue too hard. But no open bar. And my aunt and uncle paid a lot for this wedding, and it was not an open bar. They have 3 drinks that they gave you at immediately after the wedding. There was a little reception in between getting the reception venue ready. There was in between part where they were selling or not selling, but giving hors d'oeuvres and wines and stuff, and that was part of it, and that was where you got your free like
Mm-hmm.
liquor. They had like a
Okay.
specialty
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a specialty cocktail. Everyone got one of the specialty cocktail, and you got a wine, a sparkling wine, and a red wine. And I was like, okay, that's what they got, sure, you know. But it was 8 hours, you know, all together. This was like 8 hours long. So that liquor that you got at the beginning didn't really last long. So I still had to buy it. I bought a drink, in the after
Yeah. Yeah.
reception and stuff. So yeah,
My
had a
hot
good time.
take is if you can't do open bar, the best
Hmm.
option other than that is actually BYOB. But I know not all venues allow that. But
Not yeah, they didn't. They didn't allow us to do that. They were like, no, you gotta
yeah,
make
yeah,
people pay for the yeah.
that's fair. All
Well,
right,
carrying on.
Order.
carrying on.
Something,
Order in
something,
the court.
order.
Order
Yeah.
in the court.
Some bitches
All
on
right.
trial today.
Yes, we gotta face these serious charges. All right, Chappell Roan.
Hmm.
We're gonna present the first charges of being rude to fans. All right, we have the evidence presented. Hopefully, everyone can see it. Let's dive into this. All right, that's the first bit that we have. We have on top of this another interaction that Chappell Roan had with an individual who was working on the stage with her, where she's accused of being rude to this person, and so we're gonna look at this as
People
well.
are trying to cancel Chappell Roan after she lashed out at her assistant after he couldn't get her dress off on stage. You can see here that he's trying to get it off, but he can't really find where to untie it. And Chappell Roan just kind of keeps singing, acting as if nothing's happening. And they kind of try to work together to get it off, and eventually she can't. So she just yanks it out of his hand and walks off. Now, to be clear, I think trying to cancel Chappell Roan for something like this is so stupid, especially when the dude was stupid enough to not know how to untie a bow like this. But it also makes me wonder, if it's as easy to untie as this, why couldn't she have just done it herself? Now, do I think this is a good way to treat people? Honestly, no. But when you're a performer like her who's always in the spotlight and is currently performing in front of hundreds of thousands of fans, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and say, hey, I'm performing, I need to get the show going on. And because let's be honest, if you were in her shoes and you were performing in front of all these people, this would probably be your reaction, if not worse. But
All right, so that paired with a random assortment of Chappell Roan being like rude and direct to like fans and like other people and stuff like that, the like stan culture people, people who've like followed her around. She's kind of like been accused of being really rude and mean to people, and some people are
Yeah.
trying to accuse her of being like not fit for fame and clearly not good at this or something. Those are the charges
Yeah.
that she's facing in this moment.
Yeah.
At first glance, do we have thoughts?
I think, on the first part of like, being rude and quote unquote not being fit for fame, well, like, well, honey, like, what is fame then? Should a person just be allowed to be walked on and like walked over? Do they not have some autonomy? Do they not have some, opinions about the things that are happening to them? Like, are they not allowed to voice these to the people who they quote unquote call their fans? Are the fans, these loyal people, they're not allowed to like see her as a human being sometimes, and like, um, yeah, and both of the videos that we saw, it wasn't anything too crazy. Like, the first one of like telling just some paparazzi guy to shut the fuck up. She got heated in like a moment, like, hey, like, none of us know what kind of day she was having. Before that, I'm sure all along that red carpet, they were getting on her nerves, like telling her to do different things, like things that she couldn't immediately like just like do, because you missed multiple people are like hollering at you, and you're trying to get, or like the attention is being just thrown left and right, left and right. She can't just, it's like selectively deciding, oh, which paparazzi am I going to listen to in any given moment, and having that kind of judgment walking down the runway. One guy yelling at me at one time, I can see how like she might have gotten frazzled in the moment. Like, hey, actually, all this is noise. This is noise. Shut the fuck up. Like, you see me doing something. Please shut up. Um, yeah, I think she's just human. Like,
Before I go on, I want to add let's try to keep the cussing to a minimum because that might have to be edited out with YouTube.
Oh,
Just to say.
I'll bleep it out. We don't worry about cause
Okay.
I don't know. There's some things I think that we're gonna have to be able to bleep out just as like a
Yeah.
sidebar. Like if we
Yeah.
want to have a discussion about hags here, I want us to be able to have that discussion, and I can just lean hard with the bleeps later on.
We
So
come
that's
up with
just
a different
editing
word
work
for
on
it.
my
We come up-
part.
Yeah.
And-
I was being mindful for you. I will make an effort to not cuss at all. I mean, I generally do not cuss, but okay, just checking. As in someone that edits videos, I'm like, I don't want to throw that on you, Benny. But okay, if you
Because
sign up for
like
it,
YouTube is gonna be a part of it, but long term, I want it to be like on other platforms as well. And so I'm not too I want us to not be super stressed about like swear words, mainly because like I think sometimes we might have to have a discussion about whether or not so and so celebrity can say like or something like that. And I think it's worthwhile for us to be able to have that discussion here. That's why it's recorded, not live, so that we can edit around what we need to. Because I want it to be like a free space where we're comfortable to talk about these things.
good, awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll still speak like that for. I don't have to cuss. I don't have to cuss.
No, like you can just
Yeah.
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 I guess just YouTuber brain of mine. So like what I noticed is like what restart that. My problem with the whole conversation, like she's not suited for fame. It's that she's famous for singing. She's famous for performing. She's not famous for having debates or decorum in a certain way where she's supposed to carry herself like she's a statue, perfect at all times. Like that's not what she signed up for. And especially like everyone knows Chappell Roan was like such a small, like basically indie artist until recently. And she described how she wasn't ready for this large attention that she's getting. So to expect her to automatically just like download like some like software to be immediately be like, oh, okay, I know how to conduct myself perfectly like these celebrities have been famous for years on ahead. Like she's not an actress. She doesn't do movies. She just makes music and she sings and performs, and she's literally gone on her way to slow down her progress in fame by like not doing certain interviews, not doing certain things because she's already concerned with how the rise of her fame has come way sooner than she ever anticipated. So,
and I think it's worth to question whether or not fame should come with this violation of boundaries that we see, because I think ultimately, I think this is where we have to talk about the public's perception of fame, that I don't think that when you're famous, you should have to put up with this. And I think there's a current assumption with a lot of people that by being famous, you are consenting to a certain violation of boundaries. And I think that there needs to be a reestablishment. We need to establish a new precedent. We need to establish, as a court, we need to establish a new precedent that fame does not beget consent to a violation of personal boundaries, where I think a lot of people think that it does. And ultimately, that's where I think part of this charge is stemming from. I think a lot of people misunderstanding what it means to be famous and what it means to be good at being famous, because ultimately, I think perhaps Chappell Roan is better at being famous than other people because she is willing to draw boundaries in ways that other celebrities have been afraid to in the past.
Yeah, we don't need another Britney Spears moment. Like, that's another idea, like, going on, like, how, like, you treat people that are famous. It's, like, thinking, like, this is the way they did Britney Spears? Like, the paparazzi, etc. Like, this entitlement. It's an entitlement, and the people that have that entitlement are, like, they're insane. They're just insane. Like, I think people that think it's okay, or that they have like this entitlement to people and it's okay to treat them anywhere, talk to them any crazy, talk to them anyway, and expect them not to pop out, expect them not to be a human being, expect them to like they don't have feelings, and go and like lash at them like, oh, look at you acted like a human being, how dare you, you're supposed to be famous. Like, no, like you don't throw rocks and hide your hands, and those like, people need to be reflected on.
Right, just as Bonnie, to your point, if you think about what happened with Britney Spears is like, she did, or to compare her, I'm comparing her now to Chappell Roan, because like, Chappell Roan right now doesn't have like if at all? Does she have like a PR team that's like coaching her on all this stuff? Probably not. No, but I can. You know who did have a PR team, like taking her through step by step what to say on the press? Britney Spears. Britney Spears had like all this guidance and coaching, and it was more of a thing like she kind of did, as all the younger stars did. They did these very weird, awkward interviews where their boundaries were constantly overcrossed, and they were kids, like 16-year-olds being asked about sexual stuff and just allowed to be digested into the 90s pop zeitgeist, like that kind of consumption. They were just, they were ramshackle on their lives, and like, did she get respect from people? No. Like, she did essentially what they wanted, within the press, and like she still was consummated and spit out. So it's just like, Chappell, more power to you. Tell these people to freak off, tell, to respect your boundaries and your personhood. Like, they need to hear that.
On that front, there's actually a bit of evidence that I would like to present here to the court that supports that case, because I think rightfully this person is pointing out here, as a evidence witness, right, that if you look at the replies to some of these tweets, you can see how when a man asserts boundaries with fame like this, there's people saying things like, please, you can be obsessed with him, but his mom, that's kind of weird. Well, Chappell Roan had people who were like trying to find her family and stuff, and so they're like, oh, Kit Connor just dropped some truth about parasocial relationships. It's wild how some fans can't respect boundaries. And so, but then you look at the response to Chappell Roan, and all of a sudden the response is, all she does is complain. Stop asking her questions. Stop complaining. Here we go again. And it seems pretty clear that there's a misogynistic element to the origination of these charges in the first place, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a gendered bias massively, especially because, like, I feel like when men share boundaries or express boundaries or, like, put up walls, that's respected generally. It's respected or to be understood. But all understanding goes out the window when it's a woman, and especially an attractive woman at that.
And a queer woman at that. And I think that's actually something where other women and other queer women need to be understanding of internalized misogyny, because my understanding is that some of the fans that were violating her space in this way and her boundaries were also themselves queer women. And that's one of those things to like be aware of, where just because you're a member of a particular community doesn't mean you can't hold biases, especially like more subtle ones of thinking that other queer women should just be more available to you in some way because they're famous. I think that's worth analyzing it as well.
I'm sorry to the two female justices who sit beside me. It's a token male here. I have to stand up to, like, misandry when I see it, because male pop stars actually are very, very, very hypersexualized in a way that it can. So like the interaction we're seeing now from like both like the P Diddy. I think this is not, we're not talking about P Diddy fully, but I'm just bringing it up. Yeah, with both him and then kind of what was the other one? Justin Bieber, when he was younger. The way you look at some of the interviews,
I see the direction you're going.
Yeah, the K-pop stars too. Like the way that the men are thought of as just sex machines at very, very young ages. It is very weird, and you can see like there was like a video of Justin Bieber like very visibly like it's just sort of uncomfortable with this grown woman, like, kind of groping him on stage. So it's not to say that women go through it, like, 10 times more, but the dynamics are always like, it's just very interesting when it comes to celebrityhood, or, the way that someone's personhood is just completely disregarded. But obviously with women, it is if you show any sign that you are setting boundaries, it's just like, be quiet, be thankful that you're even in this. Yeah.
You actually make a really good point because there are a
Yeah.
lot of women who engage in like stan culture who
Mm-hmm.
specifically sort of use their status as women to basically be like, well, I'm non-threatening, and they use that presumed innocence to like violate the boundaries of celebrities regardless as to whether or not they're men or women. And perhaps that's actually why I do get the sense that this is more common with queer women, like queer women celebrities, than it is with like straight women celebrities. At least when it's directed from other women.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely like an element to that as well. Of kind of, fans sort of weaponizing their perceived innocence against these celebrities because of course some of these celebrities are incredibly wealthy, some of them have like all of these like privileges in some way, and so
Mm-hmm.
they excuse like violating their boundaries for a litany of reasons. And so that is definitely something that's happened, especially to Justin Bieber. There's like tons and tons of like videos of even other
Yeah.
celebrities being very creepy towards him.
Another aspect that I want to be sure to present is the fact that Chappell Roan said herself that she'd pause everything, but because she has to basically pay back, and she's in debt with her label company because of her previous project not
Mm.
taking off, and now that's kind of when you're signed. She was signed so early. I think she was signed at 16. So she's been at this for years, and now to finally catch fame, she has to basically pay back everything from like the studio time, everything that goes into this. So like because she's not at a point where she can live comfortably, and not have to worry, but so she's forced to basically clock into work and keep doing this against her will because she basically like has no choice. Like she has to like not only pay back everything, but has to like set herself up financially so she can comfortably make music, maybe independently or whatever she chooses to do. But she's in a position where she's financially locked in, and she's the ship is going, and she can't get off of the ship at the moment. And so I can imagine that from her perspective, it's kind of like an abusive relationship. Like she's locked into something that she personally wouldn't want to do right now. She'd rather step away, but she can't. And then at the same time, people are being emotionally abusive and intellectually dishonest. A lot of people are being intellectually dishonest, and that must be a conundrum that like none of us can understand. And even like going back to her performance when that guy was like taking stuff off, like imagine like you have a whole aesthetic, and then you have like this playing guy, a guy with a jeans, a shorts, and a black shirt who's like taking away from the immersion of her performance, and it's taking a bit too long, and eventually like you're gonna have to do something. And as someone that's like who has performed, who has done poetry, who has led protests and had to
Mm-hmm.
speak, you have to keep the show going. And at some
Yeah, I mean,
point, she
Mm-hmm.
had to.
well, like
And
when you have two cooks in the kitchen, one of the cooks will sometimes get snippy with the other cooks, and you realize that it's just a product of the moment and not necessarily a reflection of anybody's character. You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? Because like sometimes you're just in the moment and you're like, no, I need you to go do this really quick right now.
Yeah.
Um, Especially if that guy has one job that is especially regarding her
I was.
costume and in a very private position, right?
Mm-hmm. So we would say like the fans, the people like seeing that performance when the guy takes a attempting to take that thing off. They don't understand like someone is in his ear saying like, "Hey, we are on a tight schedule. That thing that get that off. Get it off. Get it off. Get off." Yelling at him. Yelling at him. He's frantically probably doesn't have like the motor whatever kind of whatever's in her dress is just kind of like fidgeting. She also, as you were saying, Bunny, is trying to say this has to go. This has to go. This has to go. It doesn't. She took ownership of the moment and just said, "No, this is whatever is happening. I'm snatching it. We got to keep going. We got to keep going." So that's all happening in the background. I wanted to go back to earlier, Bunny. You were saying about her this desire to step away, and I think that like celebrities in general, in this moment in time, uniquely, think about the daily things that they see on social media, right? It's one thing to have things written about you in the tabloids, right? But it's another thing to come from a Gen Z. How old is she? She's forgetting.
She's Gen
What's
Z. I
the
think she's like
defendant's age? Gen
25
Z,
or
yeah,
26, but
yeah.
I
The
can look
defendant's
it
She's
age.
up.
She's 25.
26.
She's 26.
She's
Yeah, I thought she was
26.
26. I was 26. Coming from this generation of like being chronically online and in social media and sharing things with your friends and logging onto Twitter every day and seeing this discourse, and just that's got to be overwhelming. That it's not just some critic online who writes for some tabloid. It is your regular fans, like just normal people saying wild things about you, making wild assumptions about you. That has to be, that does need to be studied because that has to be like insane to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, and on
Yeah.
that front, I guess that was a good time to probably go to the defense, right? Because there is actually a defense statement for this topic,
Oh, she
and
said
we
something.
will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Listen.
she said something directly about it. So we're gonna watch this clip to get her statement on this issue.
I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that it's normal. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. It doesn't mean I want it. It doesn't mean that I like it. I don't want whatever the you think you're supposed to be entitled to whenever you see a celebrity. I don't give a if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's weird. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior. Okay?
Justice Bunny, was this submitted to you last night? Was the defendant aware that they are not supposed to use that kind of language when speaking to justices? Oh, okay. Well, since that's the only thing that we have, or there are other things, but like she didn't send that much. We won't dismiss it. We'll still use it. Okay, we'll talk about it. Okay.
So I think that's a pretty compelling defense, and I think that like ultimately this just goes back to the question of like what do people assume when they accept being famous, right? And we understand that fame is something that can kind of just be dropped on people randomly, and so it's not necessarily something that you can predict or sign up for. And I think ultimately the charges of not handling fame well, I think just don't stick because at the end of the day, I think she is handling fame well and drawing boundaries. I just think that people who are presenting these charges have a misunderstanding about what it ultimately should and should not mean to be famous, and they're making an assumption that people should let their boundaries be violated.
I'm also glad that she's choosing, that she's like doing this early. Like she's speaking out early within her fame, setting the boundary now for the future trajectory of her career. Because I can imagine like the usual template for celebrities are, you try to keep on the best smile face for as long as possible. You don't ever like basically like snap or, as what people would say, crash out. When no, she's a new boundary. Again, she's only blown up this year. What was it like during spring break? Sometime around spring break. So it has not been that long since she's had this many eyes on her. So I'm really glad that she's like speaking out now and just setting the tone for the future of her career to like respect that. And also other fans can help enforce that and try to like stop people from acting in ways that are just irrational. Again, irrational. Like she said, I don't care if it's normal for these list of insane things. I don't care either. Exactly. Like it shouldn't be tolerated and should be accepted. And I think she's challenging the way that people interact with fame. And she's definitely opened up the conversation for that. For I believe other celebrities had chimed in on that and agreed. And people that probably didn't feel as safe or comfortable, or their PR team is probably pushing them from even speaking up on like the things they experience or them want to truly say. But Chappel Roan, it's like, nope, I don't care. I'm going against probably what my PR is probably telling me, but I'm going to speak my mind and set this tone now. And that is because it's at the end of the day, this is her life.
here's how I know, just for a full fact, that this is really about, her queerness, her womanhood, and just like, society as in general not liking women, audibly setting these boundaries. Beyonce. Every you talk to any fan of Beyonce or just people in general, you think when you talk about Beyonce and boundaries, these things are just assumed, right? No one thinks to like physically like touch Beyonce, let alone try to, stalk, harass. These things don't happen to her. There's a certain level of there's a level of prestige and access that she has, right? But it's just this thing of like, you know, it's only because she didn't say these. It's you guys. She doesn't say these things, but yet you respect her to the fullest. None of you are out here harassing Beyonce the way that you would Chappell. Chappell's just loud about. She's saying what like needs to be said. Like, hey, no, actually, I'm not gonna let you do it. And it's not gonna take me to get to the level of Beyonce until you start respecting my boundaries. I'm a human being right now. Respect me now.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have to reach like a certain level of like fame or acclaim to like have your boundaries respected.
Yeah.
I think it's also because people think because she's so newly famous, they think that they have access to her because she's so fresh and having these mini eyes. Like, no, like she was a human before she blew up, and she's a human now, and she's gonna be human as she gets bigger and bigger. Like at the end of the day, it's like even trying to connect that her being so newly famous means she's approachable in a way. I'm not saying she's unapproachable, but approachable to where you can approach her constantly for photos and whatnot, and get mad when she says no. Sometimes they don't want to perform. Sometimes she just want to go out. She want to step out her place. She don't want to be caged up like a bird and expect that. And so it's the idea of people like, again, that entitlement for photos, that entitlement to expect her to smile for you. Like, no. And I'm curious to wrap up my mind. I'm curious, who are these people? Who are these fans? Who are these so-called fans? Like, I would love to know what group of people are doing this. What is the outliers? What's the patterns? I would love to know. I'm not gonna say it. I think y'all know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. But just to the defendant's case, like, how many times has she? It takes one audible no. Speaking of Beyonce, you say yes to your number and yes. I'm gonna stop singing. But it's just like she definitely has numerous pictures of her standing with fans. You think that she was like, so hunky dory in all these pictures in all these photos to take these pictures? Probably not, right? She probably just, at any moment in any time of day, she probably just was one person was just like, no, actually, I'm just not gonna take this picture. I know you love me. Yes, hi, HTO, yeah. I'm trying to get my coffee. I gotta go back to the hotel. People are not. They're just not allowed grace. It's insane.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the next set of charges. At this point, we've examined this one quite a bit. Hopefully, the next one will be a little bit quicker because I really want to have time to dive into the final charge. This charge, I'm going to present it to the court here very quickly. This tweet got 56,000 likes. Leave that for the court records. And it says, quote, Chappel Roan is an embarrassment to lesbians. You can't borrow from drag aesthetics and embrace your sexuality, then pretend the party would criminalize our happiness is the same as the one who protects it. Now, the charges here that we want to focus on, because we'll get the other component of this later, is the idea that somehow Chappel Roan is either a fake lesbian and or borrowing from drag aesthetics or like exploiting drag culture in some way, which I first and foremost have to say I think is silly, and I already have a suspicion that these charges are stemming from a silly notion that women can't be drag queens, and also the policing of lesbianness I think is a pretty major problem here, that this charge was even brought in the first place.
What's her stats?
I mean, the whole even them writing, embrace your sexuality. And embrace your sexual. That right there is like, whether she was famous or not, she's a lesbian. The idea that her embracing herself, but she's been embracing herself, comes with these like, that she can't have autonomy to be able to like, not like, I mean, she doesn't have to. I'm sorry. The idea just like entirely that she has to immediately like fall in line, like toe the line for Democrats. Don't get me wrong. Every right to vote for who you want to do and have your reasons, and there's plenty of reasons why people might want to. But at the same breath, like, people have every right to exercise, just like people have the right to vote, people have the right to choose not to vote. So this idea of being shamed, she's being shamed as a lesbian because she chooses not to endorse a candidate. And even also that, like, she just didn't give her endorsement. She didn't say not to vote for them.
Well,
She's just
and
not
we're going to
personally...
examine that later when we get to the third charge, because I want to focus right now on the specific charges of being a fake lesbian and exploiting drag culture. The endorsement is its own separate charge that we're going to have to address individually with its own set of evidence.
These things bleed into each other. I'm noticing these things.
They do. Because, I mean, people find any reason to say somebody's a fake lesbian. Because, I mean, our society centers men so much. The idea that a woman could not be interested in a man.
That's why I'm asking. I need her stats. How much is she? How much has she done? To what extent? You know, with another woman folk. I need to know. That's very important before we,
If you want, we can present some evidence here. I'll bring some evidence to the court. First and foremost, this evidence right here, in my opinion, is very compelling, right? It says Chappel Roan is just a Pisces who makes up fake scenarios. That's why she's mother. And then here we have this quote that says, I never danced on stage at a club. Same with Naked in Manhattan and Red Wine Supernova. I hadn't even kissed a girl or dated a girl when I wrote those songs. The version of me is really fun too, and then it continues onward. But I'd like to emphasize this, that I feel like this is very lesbian behavior, actually. Engaging in this type of, fantastical thinking, especially as a Pisces. This makes perfect sense to me. Of course, lesbians like to romanticize our own lives and sometimes have a little fun with it and tell a silly little story, while also being afraid to engage with other women sometimes at that moment. And I think her having written these songs before she had engaged in any quote unquote lesbian behavior, I think is pretty solid evidence.
It's actually very gay.
In her very gay, yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just thinking about how I'm myself, and admit it late in life, homosexual. It was very much me that just kind of like romanticizing the idea of making out with another a man. I know that's not. I don't know. I don't want to put that image in your mind. I'm so sorry. Bunny, I'm sorry. But really, truly, I was like late in life. I was like mid-20s when I really was like, doing a fly show and all that stuff. It was very much, and I was gay then, gay now, gayer still, I grow gayer by the day, but it was very much a, you can have a little fun. You can lie. No one likes to lie anymore. No one likes to lie. It's a problem. People are afraid of lying in their art. Like, come on. You hype yourself up, talk about how you do all these things with women, and then like, if a girl across the bar says hi to you, just like become a mouse. That's the reality. That's the reality. It's okay. This is part of gaydom. This is part of queerhood. It's natural.
Justice Bunny.
Justice Bunny. You have a thought?
I'm gonna sit out on this one. I think I don't have really much to add. I mean, like, I end up repeating what y'all are saying, but yeah, it's just, again, I'm the one that hasn't. Well, also I forgot. Wes, you're also gay, but I've never been attracted to women in my life, so I'm struggling. I'm struggling right now. I'm struggling to find the words on this. I support my girl.
No, it's totally understandable. And it is like, I don't know. It's one of those weird things, right? Where there was never like a time before we were queer, but there was a time before we were out. And with Chappell Roan, this like fantasizing about what a life out would be like, I think very much speaks to her lesbian credentials, at least for me, at least. I think that speaks to her lesbian credentials. But I have some more undeniable evidence, I think, right here that we can see.
Yep.
I'll pull it up to the court.
Yep.
This is more evidence. Chappell Roan herself. This is a video she posted some time ago.
No, I'm not gonna stop making fun of boys. They need to shut the f up. And so do you if you're mad. Shut up! I don't care. Scroll. My guinea pigs are fighting.
All right, in this,
Justice Benny, may I ask what was extremely lesbianic about that?
everything about it. Hating men, right? Hating men being the entire clip. Very lesbian coded behavior. B, her whole outfit, right? The like zebra print skirt, right? The very
Yeah.
loud,
I'm getting it.
hat.
Okay. 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 There's a Subaru outside waiting for her.
Yeah, exactly. You can hear the Subaru.
I got it.
Like you can feel it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is pretty strong evidence to the court that Chappell Roan is a lesbian.
Can I say the
There's a
jean
litany-
hat? I like that. The jean bedazzled hat.
Mhm. Mhm.
The
If
denim.
you
I'm
would
sorry.
like,
The denim. Yeah. Go ahead.
I can present more evidence to the court
Please
of this
do.
variety. Yes. Let's
that.
check this out.
Do you
Ooh, her voice. So.
do you indie pop boys have to say? What are you saying? What are you singing about? A cigarette? Literally cigarette? Shove that guitar up your
So we can see a
asserting her
pattern
authority.
of
Yeah.
misandry here.
And asserting her authority with men to begin with, like like belittling them. That's. Oh, I'm seeing the lesbian
As she should.
energy. Mm-hmm.
I love pre-famous Chappell Roan right now. I love these takes. Love this.
So messy.
Here we can pull up another clip just for good measure.
How dare you, Chappell Roan? How dare you make fun of the indie pop boys? That is such a respectable genre. They're so respectable. They make such good art, you stupid. You don't know anything about music, you cunt.
Oh, she knows her target audience. She knows her
Justice
target
Benny,
audience.
can I assume you also selected that clip because she sultrily grabbed her ass there?
Oh, very much so, right? Like, I mean, expressing hatred towards men
Oh, okay.
while also engaging in some type of salacious
Lesbian activity.
body language is
Okay.
very lesbian activity. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like a lesbian call. It's bringing in the girl. Like I said, she knows her target audience. She knows, yep, we don't like men, and also I know you love women. Yeah, no.
So
I guess also I want to build upon the idea of because basically what that person's accusing her is queer baiting, making money, financially making money off of queer baiting. And by the time when she made that album, she was not popping. I think she was making she only had about 100,000 Spotify listeners at the time, and that was not she didn't have this super secret this super big evil plan oh, I'm gonna pretend to be a lesbian and make this music and it's gonna be successful and I'm gonna be rich, I'm gonna be happy, and I'm gonna make all this money. No, she's just being that's the one thing I can say, her music is so authentically her, and that's one thing I want to say. People, even when it's black people talk about, we love when white girls authentically be white girls, and Chappell Roan was one of the people as examples they used, and it's she's authentically being her. So this idea of anyone having the audacity to challenge something that's so true to her, the start of her album is men can never, and she sets the tone and goes from there, and I love that. And I think it's for someone to turn her public, her awakening of her queer identity, or even coming, not even awakening, but coming public with like how she feels, because we don't know like when exactly the time period when she wrote these songs, but she's living it. She's been living that. And yeah, I mean, also just like I can imagine from even from the discourse I heard from other lesbians of like how some other lesbians are afraid to approach other women. You know, it's kind of like, you know, scary to approach a girl, and it's I'm not in the sense that that they're women are scary, but it's just like, I don't know, rejection, etc. They're like, oh, they're so beautiful. I don't know how to say hi. Like, I don't know, like, so like putting like a expecting like, I don't know, like everyone's like experience with their lesbianism. Sorry, I almost said lesbianism.
Yeah.
Like I'm some like Christian Republican. But even with like with their queerness, like what the just like everyone navigates differently. So no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also worth I'm gonna cross examine some of the people presenting these charges in the first place, actually.
Ooh.
Because if you look at this, you can see this gender critical group that is accusing Chappell Roan of not actually being a lesbian. And I think that on that front alone, by the very nature of being transphobic, these people are revealing themselves to be unreliable witnesses
We can
claiming
dismiss the
Chappell
charge.
Roan. Yeah. I think that speaks to like an unreliability of the witnesses here that are trying to push these charges.
Okay. Surprised it got to this court. An accusation of that magnitude made it to this court with a you know, a witness like that. Okay.
Truthfully, there's a secondary part to this charge that is worth addressing. I think that is of note, and that is we're gonna pull it up right here really quick. And this is evidence in support of Chappell Roan in her defense, right? Quote, Chappell Roan's love for drag is not performative. She's literally a drag queen, and the fact that you can't acknowledge her as one isn't evidence of anything besides the fact that you hate and reject queer women. And I think that is true. I think that one of the reasons why this got so much traction and popularity is because people do have skepticism as to whether or not women are allowed to be drag queens. And this was like a whole discussion. Actually, even famously, RuPaul previously did not allow trans women to participate in Drag Race. And so, unfortunately, there is this gatekeeping, even within the queer community a little bit, to try and keep women away from drag. When clearly we have awesome people like Chappell Roan who engage in drag culture, and I think that is an interesting thing to note in this case.
So then I want to say is that like I at first didn't know she was a drag queen, but once people said so, it's like, oh, the blue eyeshadow made sense. Now the blue eyeshadow makes sense because you got people that would never put blue on their eyelids now putting blue on their eyelids. The look, entirely. Especially with the way like she blends it together, like puts it all together. Like she's authentically like she's doing drag. Especially for a woman doing drag, she's doing it amazingly, and it's just like it is. This whole idea, even like at first, like I'll be real, like women doing drag was a new concept for me, but I never was like, oh, not they can't do this. But this idea of people like upholding these really stringent rules that like who made these rules, who's like trying to enforce that it has to be specifically like cis men, let alone maybe like a lot of the times cis white queer men, but like the whole no, like I think it's a very regressive like point of view, and anyone like perpetuating these talking points like might need to like really like kind of like what are we doing? Like we're right now policing other queer people expressing their queerness. Drag is a very queer thing, and it's just like no.
I would argue to say that if our day-to-day gender expressions can be equated to prose, I think that drag in a sense is the poetry of gender, in the way that everything is made to be hyperbolic and expressive, and it's meant to be more. It's meant to be, that's why it's so campy, right? And so to say that women cannot celebrate femininity through drag, I think is just as silly as saying that women can't be poets.
You ate that. You ate that line about the drag me and prose and poetry. You ate that. But I just want to couple this conversation with this conversation of minstrel showness, and I have a larger point about why it's absurd to exclude women from drag. Often, like drag will be like accused from hyper like, gender critical women will they'll say that drag is some sort of minstrel show version of of womanhood. That doesn't work in a sense because drag has sort of in its way always been like the target audience for drag has namely been gay people, queer people, and women, right? Like you want women to be in the audience. You want to reveal to women this sort of to this play on gender roles and hyperfemininity, and as you were saying, like campiness. It would be absurd to exclude them from both that like the performance and that like the viewership, right? Or whereas you talk about like actual minstrel shows or like actual minstrelity, that was namely to mock and make fun of black people, and we were not part of that that audience, that show, that imagery. Like we weren't the target audience for it, and we weren't like historically along the line of like this. Yeah, it's absurd to say that women can't be involved in drag because it's clearly always been they've been rightly tethered to it by namely being like the audience and those who did like art and did input. Yeah.
To build
That
upon
actually-
from that, though. Sorry, you go first.
Oh, well, that actually like ties into like I think why a lot of cishet people don't mind Bugs Bunny doing drag, but then get upset about drag queens in real life, because when you put it like that, actually, I think a lot of people don't want to accept the underlying genuine appreciation of femininity that exists within drag. And in not
Yeah.
accepting that genuineness, right, they're willing to accept parody, like what happens with Bugs Bunny doing drag, but not accept drag in real life when they see it, because to them, if it's a parody of femininity, then it's belittling femininity. When in actuality, a drag queen is celebrating components of femininity, and that's what they don't like, is that genuineness in that celebration.
I mean, also like to even pick up on like what Wes's point is like drag goes also hand in hand with like the ballroom culture, and the ballroom culture was trans women, a lot of predominantly trans women, femmes. So like it's also like like going back to how like RuPaul like banned trans women from performing drag when like he basically pulled ballroom culture and took it to basically the white queer audience, the middle class white audience, and etc. It's absurd that like people, again going back to the ballroom culture, like that scene, like that was predominantly like queer women, trans women, really showcasing the seeing how far they can take femininity. And it was all like in not just it wasn't a parodying of womanhood, it was showing the divineness, really serving, voguing. All that comes from the ballroom culture. So to kind of go and think it's like a bastardization for like a woman to do it, when as a lot of the roots of a lot of like drag culture, that a lot of stuff has been picked from like the evolution of ballroom culture. It's just like they're lacking that context, and it kind of makes me think these people that are making these assumptions, can they speak to ballroom culture? And can they see where it overlaps and what has been taken from that community, from that space, from that time period, and just basically sold in a capitalist way towards everyone else? Because that's kind of what basically RuPaul did. He was like, oh, like almost if like he was the king of drag queens, like was setting it all to like, oh yeah, this is basically as if like he created, like he just like took it to a wider white audience. But people like policing that, like I just don't no, like they're not putting respect on the ballroom culture. That was women, femmes, trans women, specifically queer women, trans women, like showing showing who can out feminize, who can out femininity each other, and it was, and I mean, if y'all have seen Pose, that's a good peek into what that space looks like.
Yeah, and just adding on that point, because I was going to talk about when Benny mentioned RuPaul, and just to the two justices, we have the case for RuPaul coming up, right? I think we do. I think it's on the docket somewhere.
If it's not on the docket, I will make sure that it gets onto it.
Good. Just to that point, for like, we're talking about excluding women from drag. For a lot of growing queer women, it was a way for them to dip into femininity in a way that felt safe, because they might have had an itch in the back of their head, coming up, that hey, I think I might be a little bit of something. I think I might be. We can talk about this. We can get more into this later, but like, I think I might just be more than a gay man. I think I might actually, I want to present in a different way. I'm going to try this thing out in a way that's, safe for me in this environment where I'm going to be encouraged to do so. And then later in life, they find out, no, I wasn't just like, I was dipping, but I really knew what I was doing. I knew, what I was getting into with that. I am a woman. I'm a woman, to exclude just to exclude people from that opportunity. And we even know of, I'm forgetting their names, the different contestants on RuPaul later were like, no, I'm a trans woman. I was not, within I didn't have a full concrete self. Yeah. I didn't have a full concrete identity of myself. I had an inkling, but it wasn't until I was doing drag 24/7, I was presenting that version of womanhood, did I get a full concrete idea of who I actually was.
Yeah, in a way that, like, as a closeted trans woman, I very often explain, like, in my past, obviously, I explained it as very much like, oh, I was playing a character of, like, a man. I was playing a character of a man. I know a lot of other, like, trans women had that experience in their lives, and to a certain extent, doing drag can be a way to, instead of playing a character, in a way to stop playing a character and explore who you really are. And that can be like a really important outlet for a lot of trans women.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on to the next charges?
We said we were going to be fast with that one, and then
it turned into a whole thing.
Good.
All right, let's move on to the next charges. These are the most significant charges that are being faced right now, and I'll pull it up to the court. So let's just get to it. These presenting the last charges for the day.
Before I say what I'm about to say, please know I'm a fan of Chappel Roan, or I'm a fan of her music, I should say. Now, she just got on the app and clarified she's not voting for Trump. Great, I'm glad she clarified that. But she also made it clear that she thinks all of the
I will just actually hit my gavel for a second and say that it is very silly of anyone to have suggested that Chappel Roan was ever going to vote for Donald Trump, okay? And I would just like everybody to strike from the record any hint or suggestion that Chappel Roan could have ever voted for Donald Trump. Let's continue on with the rest of these charges.
Acknowledged.
Valid critiques that she received for her interview, in which she said there are problems on both sides, which is the definition of equivocating. She's pretending as though that very valid critique was people falling for clickbait and people not thinking critically. And she's got about one more good time to get up on this internet and speak down to her fans. She's got about one more good time before the whole shit is up. Honestly, it's giving entitled. It's giving no PR training. It's giving. I'm finding it exhausting. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a fan of her music. I've been bopping to the album, but girl.
So, those are the charges, right? Not endorsing Kamala Harris. Pretty big charge that she's being faced with. And that was tied into some of the other charges that we addressed earlier about, like, you know, not having fame, not having a PR team or whatever. But I think it's important to really dive into this, especially the notion that somehow she was equivocating between the Democrats and the Republicans. I think it is a little bit shameful to throw that accusation, especially because the things that Chappell Roan have been talking about have quite literally been an ongoing genocide that is happening in the world. And I think that there's good reason to be skeptical of the Democratic Party. We all should be fully aware as queer people of the Democratic Party not fully serving our interests. I would like to just remind the court that Barack Obama, when he was first elected, was not supporting gay marriage. And in fact, the first Affordable Care Act did not include PrEP coverage. And so those are very important notes to the court that I would like to bring at this moment. But before we move on to any other evidence, Justice West, Justice Bunny, do either of you have any statements in response to these charges?
Chappell Roan did nothing wrong. It is not an equivocation to say that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both piles of garbage that have consequentially led this country astray and down the path to fascism. Liberals make me itchy when they posture like this gentlewoman did just now, and postulate that Chappell wasn't being insightful or critically thinking when she didn't take that moment herself to think, what is she actually saying? You know, or what would give someone, a queer woman, pause on throwing their vote for Kamala? That's a Democrat. Why is she giving any kind of pause? I'm guessing this person would just probably say, oh, it's just like, oh, she's a white woman, so you didn't notice. No. Chappell has been very clear about the issues that matter to her. And one party is currently engaging in a principle that is, you know, let's just say a very baseline principle, right? Of not wantonly killing and murdering people or not supporting in that endeavor. It is not insane to suggest that someone would give pause to that. Saying that both sides have problems is actually understating it. One party definitely, you know, does want the eradication of queer rights, but the other party has been woefully inept in protecting those things and doing really like fuck all about it.
Yes, I would
Sorry for
argue to
cursing
say
there,
that
but yes, I'm holding back my anger.
it is
Bunny.
not very Brat Summer to downplay the war crimes that have been committed against the Palestinian people. It is not very Brat Summer of the Israeli government to be actively targeting UN food supplies to Gaza.
Yeah, from what I know is that I believe she was invited to the White House and denied it because they didn't allow her to give any kind of moment towards Palestine, any acknowledgement. And that was kind of what set her on the path to not endorse Kamala Harris, was because that refusal of allowing her to even acknowledge the atrocities happening in Palestine. Also, I want to go into the whole aspect that, like, no politician is owed celebrities' endorsements, especially because at the end of the day, she's putting her whole name behind that. They have no, and at the end of the day, like, celebrities have every right to endorse who they want. I mean, I'm not going to agree with someone that endorses Trump. I'm just going to not engage with that person. But at the end of the day, it's like the whole idea of, like, again, entitlement to someone's endorsement. If she doesn't, how is she going to endorse someone that she doesn't personally feel strongly about? She has every right not to. She has every right not to. And it's just, again, like, liberals are also the one, because, like, they're the biggest ones that are asking people these types of questions. Like, they're trying to, like, yeah, in a way, like, kind of get, like, a soundbite, and that soundbite is what blew up and kind of started this whole discourse, because I think she went on a talk show. I think it was a talk show or, like, an interview. It was some sort of interview she had. And yeah, they got a soundbite and ran with that, and, you know, she have every right. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, like, they both have problems, but, like, it's deeper than just that. Like, again, like, going back, they didn't allow her to even, like, give any kind of acknowledgement to what's happening in Palestine. So for them to go and in the same breath expect her to endorse them, like, no, like, she's putting her whole name behind that, her brand and everything. So if she doesn't feel strongly about someone, she has every right not to. And also, they're treating her as if she was discouraging people from voting or discouraging people from even voting for Kamala Harris. She just said that she personally isn't endorsing her. Doesn't even mean she's not voting for her. I think she wouldn't clarify that she said she is going to vote for Kamala Harris, but that the fact that she doesn't want it personally with her platform endorse her.
Yeah, and we have a statement from the defense that has been prepared and published that we're going to be examining later on. Justice West, did you have any other point before we move on to two important bits of evidence?
I'll save it for later. Let's get the meeting. Let's get this trial running, right? Because we've got a lot of
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna present two bits of evidence to the court here, really quick. First, right here is a statement from OnCloud_E, quote, Chappel Roan is an icon for calling out the weak support of trans rights on the left. Over the last few years, both parties have ratcheted farther and farther right on pretty much every issue, and this one is no different. It's not her fault that you haven't been paying attention. And to back this claim up, we have another point of evidence, right? Quote, I was told Chappel Roan was a stupid traitor fake lesbian for saying that exactly this was going to happen. And here we have a Democratic Senate candidate. Let's see what he has to say about trans rights, which I will just remind the court that is one of the reasons why Chappel Roan was hesitant to provide an endorsement for Kamala Harris, is because one of her other main issues that she is worried about is the bodily autonomy of trans people in America. And so let's examine this piece of evidence right here.
Ted Cruz is lying again, but now he's lying about our children. I'm a dad. I'm also a Christian. And my faith has taught me that all kids are God's kids. So let me be clear. I don't want boys playing girls' sports or any of this ridiculous stuff that Ted Cruz is saying. Ted Cruz is lying about my record because he can't defend his own. He's done nothing to secure the border. And he wants to raise the retirement age for Social Security. He's full of it. You know that. I'm calling all red, and I approve this message.
Very curious phrasing for him to say that, right?
Well, it's
I as a Christian.
Dems once again.
As a Christian.
Yeah, the Dems once again allowing Republicans to set the framing for these issues, right? Because you saw, he simply just kept it on, oh, I don't want boys playing in girls' sports. The framing is never, the actual framing, the actual like issue that we're raising is like, namely safety and healthcare for trans people. Sports is like, it's important, but it's like, the bottom of the list. This is about like the safety of trans people to exist within these spaces. Again, Chappell did nothing wrong.
It's one of those things where, like, you can see clearly where they're willing to make compromises on trans rights. And because even if you give the most generous interpretation of what he said, and he says if he thinks trans women are trans women, right? Trans women are women, trans girls, they're girls, and they should be able to play on girls' sports. Even if he thinks that, the way he phrased it, okay, as boys shouldn't be playing on girls' sports, the way he phrased it is very much a dog whistle for these transphobic people, because at the end of the day, that's what they're saying. There's not actually men playing on women's sports. There's trans women who are trying to play in sports. And ultimately, what's ending up happening is they're saying that it's boys playing in girls' sports. And so him leaning into that framing fundamentally undermines the point. He also was saying something about Ted Cruz not securing the border, which is a little bit of a random aside, but it is, I think, another point where we can see that these Democrats are willing to throw various marginalized communities under the bus in order to get elected. And granted, this is a Senate campaign in Texas, but ultimately the fact that Democrats are willing to push lines like this, I think is indicative of them not having fully earned endorsements, regardless as to who we are all going to be voting for in November. It is very different to perform an entire song and dance for people who are willing to say and do things like this.
Something that's kind of parallel even to also this is to like because I believe that's a Texas candidate because he talked about Ted Cruz who's in Texas, but it reminds me when Democrats they ran what's it called Democrats and in the House, they specifically Nancy Pelosi, they were pushing for because there was like a race, basically like a Democrat race, between like like before it goes to like where it's like the primary. So before it, so like it was just like within just Democrats, there was a progressive candidate that was pro-choice, and they put a pro-life Democrat over a progressive pro-choice left us candidate because he towed the line on everything else, and they would rather. I mean, and this was when Nancy, I believe that Nancy Pelosi has stepped down by now, a year or two ago, but this is when they literally like this. I feel like this is another example. This is also in Texas again, in backstabbing like again queer voters, etc. So like this is, and also like when he leading with the I as a Christian, and then he leads into the dog whistles. Yes, I'm dressed as a nun, but as someone who grew up ex-religious, my dad's Mexican, so I grew up in a highly religious home. I've heard some of the most bigoted things follow I as a Christian. I as a Christian has been the vein of my life. Hence me dressing up as, ungodly.
Sacrilegious.
No. But and then also this whole idea of just like, because that's something like weaponizing Christianity against queer people, like the fact that that's even included in a Democratic campaign, like that's so unnecessary. And it's also like, why are you reaching for voters that don't want you? Like, you trying to be transphobic. Don't get me wrong, there are transphobic Democrats, as we know, but like using the right wing's dog whistles, it's also going to make more like actual leftists not want to vote for your candidate. So this is just like counterproductive. And it just kind of reminds me when like instead of like candidates Democrats going further left, like when they need more votes, they go to the center or they go to the right, and they try to reach them instead of going to people who's actually reachable if they just were to be more progressive.
And that's actually, I'd like to present to the court some evidence, right? Andy Bashir in Kentucky really leaned into defending trans kids in sports, and said, hey, why are you bullying these kids? Why are you bullying these? They're just like high schoolers, they're middle schoolers. Why are you doing this? And he did lean into the Christianity thing. He's like, I think God loves all his children, and we should just let these kids play sports because they're just kids doing high school sports and whatever. And it's weird that you Republicans are so focused on them. And Andy Beshear is a Democrat and is the governor of Kentucky. We all know Kentucky to be a red state. The fact that he can accomplish that, I think, is pretty solid evidence that the Democrats don't need to be throwing trans people under the bus. And yet still, we have instances of them doing this. So it makes sense why a queer woman might have some reservations about a full-throated public endorsement, which, to be clear, would include a whole entire song and dance. Like, they are really expecting Chappel Roan to go out and do her job for free for Kamala Harris, when, truthfully, what even has Kamala Harris said about trans rights on the campaign trail at all, in a moment where Republicans are trying to make a huge chunk of their campaign about trans people? If you look at the swing states right now, Republicans are running attack ads specifically talking about trans people constantly. And we have heard very, very little from both the Joe Biden administration and Kamala Harris's campaign team about trans rights. In fact, the Joe Biden administration proposed alterations to like Title IX policy that carved out a potential for excluding trans girls from school sports, which is something that is worth noting. And so if your top priorities, as Chappell Roan has stated in this moment, are the liberation of the Palestinian people and protecting the rights of trans people, it is no wonder why she would be hesitant to endorse Kamala Harris, who has yet to truly separate herself from Joe Biden's policies.
No, like, truly, I'm less about talking about the defendant now and really about the awful, awful political instincts of the Democratic Party. Just a side tangent I'm going on. You eliminating that in an anecdote, like Andy Beshear just kind of treating the framing as like insane, right? And staying focused on what the Kentuckians actually need, right? Like, why are we accepting Republican framing? Why are we reaching out to the fringe of the right, right? Because even you can talk about the conservatives, right, or like right-leaning people who are workers. They don't care, like, they don't actually care, right, about trans on the day of like trans women being in sports, or like kids being, if you pry them and ask them about trans issues, yes, you're going to hear something transphobic. But on the things that matter to them on a daily basis, no, to the right and to the center, it's just how are they putting food on the table. So in these swing states, you don't have to accepting that going far and far to the right. It's just like a necessary and politically unsavvy tactic, right? Because you're not going to be able to truly, promise on those things of like because it's hard to actually exclude like how I'm losing the thought here, but it's just like actually delineating what counts as what is a woman, those things. It becomes okay, well, now you're gonna have it on the books. On like, what is everyone gonna have to get their the chromosomes checked? Like, what do we mean? When we say these things. So you're not gonna be actually to actually promise on that. It's just going to be wanton transphobia that's going to happen on the record. Why not go for the things that actually the issues that actually matter to people within these swing states? And I think
Most definitely.
underlying all of this is because like Dems can't. They know they suck at promising those things. So,
It's a losing issue for Republicans, and Kamala Harris could very easily turn all of those campaign ads into like campaign ads against the Republicans, to be honest, because all she really needs to do is make a big public statement about, look at these Republicans, they're so insane, they're so fixated on trans people, they can't talk about anything else, why are they bothering with other people's business? And then all of a sudden, every time somebody sees one of those ads, they're not going to think about, oh, these trans people are destroying society. They're going to think, damn, this is all the Republicans are talking about. That's crazy. And she could make their money work against them with a statement, with like just one or two statements that are public, and she's not doing that. As we get back to the charges, though, we do have a statement from the defense. We actually have two statements from the defense, and we're gonna watch both of these. I might cut them short a little bit, because together they're about 5 minutes in their completion. But here's the statement from the defense.
I just woke up, and to like people just skewing it even more, endorsing and voting are completely different. I don't agree with a lot of what is going on with like policies. Like, obviously, the policies of the right, but also some of the policies on the left. That's why I can't endorse. That's why I can't like put my entire name and my entire project behind one. Because there is no way I can stand behind some of the left's completely transphobic and completely genocidal views. So yeah, there are huge problems on both. You know what is right and wrong, and so do I. Trump, for real, but some of the shit that has gone down in the Democratic Party that has failed people like me and you. And more so, Palestine. And more so, every marginalized community in the world. So no, I'm not gonna settle for what the options that are in front of me. And you're not gonna make me feel bad for that. So yeah, I'm voting for Kamala. But I'm not settling for what has been offered, because that's questionable. It's questionable that our actions of our government, the actions of the internet, the actions of you and me. If this is what you are not understanding, you know what? Endorsing someone, if someone is publicly endorsing a political figure, that doesn't even mean that they're gonna fucking vote for them. Because as I said in my other video, actions speak louder than words. And I'm not gonna let this narrative of like me not playing both sides. No. This is not me playing both sides. This is me questioning both sides, because this is what we have in front of us. So if you look at my statement and you're still like, she's just playing both sides, like she doesn't want to, no, you're not getting it. I'm critiquing both sides because they're both so up. Voting is all we have right now in the system. And so I encourage it, yet again, vote for who in your mind is the best option for what we have right now. Because it's all we can do. And I hope this makes it clear that no, I'm not picking the sides of what we have right now. Yes, one's obviously better than the other. But Jesus Christ, I hope you don't settle for what we have and put your name behind someone that you don't fully trust because of their blatant actions.
All right, honestly, I think that's all we really need to hear from the defense, because I think she said it very clearly, right? Voting and endorsing are two different things. She even said very explicitly that she is voting for Kamala Harris. So all of the completely out-of-pocket statements that somehow she is voting for Donald Trump, I would like to recognize the insanity of that charge. Ultimately, there was no world where a woman who hates men clearly as much as she does, a woman who very much supports trans people as much as she does, could ever or would ever possibly vote for a Republican. The idea that she is equivocating, I think, is silly. I think she is just giving an accurate portrayal of where the Democrats and the Republicans are. And I think it is correct and justified to withhold a public endorsement, even if you are voting for Kamala Harris, to withhold a public endorsement because of a literal ongoing genocide right now that the current administration is supporting.
Again, no notes. I do think, like, I guess the only note I do have for her is that at some point she had stated, voting right now is all we have in this system, and Chappell, love you down. There's a lot more you could do, just in like the everyday, your existence as a citizen in this country and in this world. There's a lot more that you can do to actively change the environment immediately around you, right? There's ways to get involved with local organizations or communities. I suggest to the jury here to look into those things, because voting is not that one day, that one activity that you do is not all there is to government. There's a lot that goes in the interstice and in between of getting onto that ballot box and voting for your local your local elections, your presidential elections, your federal elections, all these things. It's an everyday process, an everyday you speaking your voice as she's doing here, an everyday thing of getting involved.
A lot of like what she said, I said earlier, and I will say I didn't see the video fully, so for me to kind of be spot on like basically what her take was like, yeah, you're not endorsing in Canada doesn't mean you're not gonna vote, and let alone not vote for her. And then also like she said, like she doesn't want to have to put her name fully behind someone she doesn't fully support. That simple. So I feel like it's just like, yeah, it's again, she never said she was gonna vote for Trump, and she wasn't discouraging people from voting at all. I mean, she just was real with her. People asked her would she endorse Kamala Harris, and she didn't, and she gave her valid reasons why. That simple. And honestly, like this is the problem. I think like a lot of liberals want you to bounce to their beat, and we're seeing that a lot lately. We've seen that over since Kamala Harris. I mean, we've seen it before Kamala Harris was running, but they've been more outspoken more lately now than ever. That when we don't bounce to their beat, they're gonna like lash at us. They're gonna like demonize us, etc. And it's like it's getting out of hand. And it's like a lot of us like I'm voting Kamala Harris, but like y'all are getting on my nerves. Like I'm voting for my black trans women in southern states who don't have the same rights as me, who is in California as a trans woman. I'm voting for women and people who can who menstruates bodies, etc. There's just so much that's on the line that's making me want to vote for Kamala Harris. But at the end of the day, it's like people forcing people to bounce to their beat. Like we can't like have any autonomy, and it's just like, come on. And it's like it's getting annoying. It's past annoying. It's just like, I mean, and that's the only thing I appreciate about them being mad is that at least her crowds to her shows will be a little less compact, and we might have a little more room to buy a ticket because these liberals at least won't be buying one. Hopefully not. Make some room for me. And yeah, but I'm tired of these liberals. They're just like, you don't have the moral higher ground, liberals. And like I feel like also that's another thing. I feel like they're like assuming that like us like not wanting to like endorse, or like folks not feeling strongly for Kamala Harris, it's based off a moral thing, and then at the same breath they morally attack us for not wanting to endorse her or vote for her. It's like they can't have their cake and eat it too, and I'm not for that, and I will shun anything like that comes to our court. That said, you take it from here, Benny.
Yeah, well, I would like to push a motion to dismiss all charges. If you two both agree, do you think that we are ready for a verdict on that front to dismiss all charges on Chappel Roan?
Acknowledged. Yeah. I'm realizing a lot of. If we want to typify the people who have, levied these charges. Lids. White. What else? What were they?
usually like
gender
middle
gender
class,
critic,
kinda
gender,
like,
middle class,
yeah.
gender critical. Turfs. Throw it in the bin. Why are we even in this court?
That's a good point. I actually would like to throw on some last minute supplementary charges, not on Chappel Roan, but to Chappel Roan haters as a group. I would like to issue my own charges of being cringe.
Yeah.
Do the other justices on the court agree?
I agree
with that. Do you think we can come to a verdict?
I agree. I also can I add simps for the Democratic Party. Bunny.
Yeah, I can definitely. Justice Bunny.
I agree.
All right, perfect. All right, that's it. All right, the court has come to a verdict, and we have found we have found Chappel Roan innocent on all charges dismissed. And then to the Democratic Party simps and to Chappel Roan haters, we have found you guilty of being cringed, and I am hereby sentencing you to 4 years of touching grass and an indefinite probation until you can prove to the court that you can get a grip.
That sounds lovely to me.
Wonderful.
That sounds like justice.
Justice was served here. This is. Why did I get
Court
dressed
adjourned.
for this? But I'm glad we settled this case. This is a tough one. A lot of competing evidence, but this is. Oof.
Truthfully, I can't wait till we get to the next one on the docket. Let's see, in 2 weeks from now, we have up the case of Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think that will be an interesting case. Our goal is to reach a verdict before Halloween, so that everybody can see the official ruling of the Supreme Court of the Queers.